Appreciate
Hit the
that.
record button. Welcome, Eddie. It's all yours.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Again, if you're going to have questions, please put them in the chat function because I know the last few times we've been doing this, there are people putting them in the, just regular comment for the participants, and we're missing people, and we don't want to miss anybody. Okay, we're trying to get to all your questions. So it's good to see you all back again. Again, it looks like we have a really full house today. So that's wonderful. I'm glad for that. Um, I have a tough topic to talk about today. Um, it's actually a topic I'm not quite sure I've seen on many podcasts or webinars in the past. And basically, that is the idea of it. If it ever time to pull the plug, and you know what? And I hate even talking in those terms because God called my wife and I to this ministry, more than a decade ago. And the reason being was to be able to help individuals who are hurting and to help couples to restore their relationships. And we are very blessed over the fact that we've seen God at work in our practice, that we've seen many relationships healed and in a better place than they've ever been before. However, during that same time, we've seen some relationships that just, for whatever reason, and we're going to talk about some of those today, that just don't wind up getting there. And it's extremely frustrating. I know for the people who are involved in a relationship, but also for me and for Terry, because we can see the route of how people can get there. We can see it, and we try to communicate it as clearly as possible. But there are some people, some individuals that, for whatever reason, it doesn't all click. And I was just talking to someone earlier today, one of my clients, and just saying, you know what, it really takes about 2 years for everything to click, for it all the pieces to come together on both ends. That we feel like, okay, you know what, I got it. The person who betrayed, all right, I'm now the new guy or the new woman. And the person who's been betrayed is like, oh, you know what, I see the difference, and I feel like I can put my trust there again. So now we have a foundation for something to build upon. So it takes a while. So when I talk about the idea of, is it ever a time to pull the plug? Like I said, I hate even thinking in those terms, but we also need to be realistic. And I especially hate it because, as a Christian, and go to Malachi, and we hear, we see that, the Lord says, God says, I hate divorce. I hate it. Um, with that, in mind, we're trying to say, hey, all right, let's see whatever we can do to try to prevent that from happening. I've been divorced twice because of my previous issues. Fortunately, I've been able to get it under control, as many of you know. 24 years into the relationship with Terry, and been clean and faithful. And I appreciate God helping me to heal. And it also proved the power that we can heal from all of this. So while, as I said, we look at, can do we ever have to pull the plug? We've seen a lot of success stories, and I just want to, some of them are almost like miracles. I mean, miracles. We had one case where the man who betrayed was with more than 55 different escorts. And he had had numerous affairs, as well as, it was a mess. And you looked at that situation when they came in, and you said, wow, how are we ever going to get them through this? How do we get to the other side? And it was hard. Well, I'll admit it to you. That was a 3-year process. There were times I remember we're in group sessions, and she would get up and just walk out of the office. There were times he came in and said, I don't think I can take this anymore. I don't think I can deal with her anger and how upset she is at me. We had it from both ends that we had to try to just continue to navigate them and give them a sense of hope while helping them understand where the other coming from in the circumstances, especially the idea that we're dealing with trauma. We've had cases of same-sex attraction where, the wife would be like, how do I know he's not really gay? And it'd be, well, you know what? We're going to have to just put trust in it. If we're seeing other changes in his world, that if he can make those adjustments and changes, understand and accept, okay, I have the same sex attraction, but I don't have to be, you know, driven by it. I don't have to be locked into that world. I can learn how to manage it. And we've seen great success that's happened with that. We've seen affairs, people who've had numerous affairs, some people who just had several, along with the pornography and all of that. But again, wonderful success stories where people come out on the other side and they are more enriched than ever. And why? Because they have true emotional intimacy and connection, which they never really had before. They just didn't know it. And that's the problem. So, okay, what the answer to the question? Well, the answer is in some cases, yeah, pulling the plug might be necessary. There may actually. We've seen, especially in cases where things become abusive, and we've seen both the betrayer and the betrayed be used in those circumstances, and we just could not allow that to happen. People's safety is first and foremost always in these circumstances. Um, the betrayers, they continue acting out. They're supposed to be in recovery. They're supposed to be doing their work. Some of them look like they're doing their work, but yet they continue to act out. Just recently, I guess it was about 3 months ago when I had a new client back then. Uh, Supposedly he had been doing work. He had been clean. She thought that he was been in recovery for quite some time and found out, no, that was not the case, that he still had been looking at porn and masturbating for years. That was devastating for her because not just because one, she had to learn to forgive and trust once before, but now here we are over another long period of time where she's being betrayed again. And then it becomes the idea, okay, so how many times do I allow something like this to happen? Well, I mean, I can turn to scripture and I can see, where Christ tells us, 70 times 70, we'll continue to forgive. But you know what? The idea is I can forgive, but I don't have to stay in that relationship. I can forgive, but I don't have to have that person part of my life if they're going to continue to, hurt me and destroy me in that sense. Um, we get betrayers who continue not to reveal everything. We've been in, cases where, people said, yeah, this is what I've told. They've been through a disclosure before in the past, and right now the person's been betrayed doesn't want to go through another disclosure at that point, which is fine. But then we find out later on that, oh, here's more stuff dripping out. And that, again, that's like death by 1,000 cuts to someone. And so we can't be doing that. That's another reason why it's like, all right, are you ever going to get it right? Or is this going to be part of my life forever that I have to be engaged in that? And I had a case, recently that I'm still working on now where, again, he's supposed to be doing his work. He's talking about how much closer he is to God and he feels like he's really in tune with his wife. And he was having a relationship with a woman on the side. Um, again, devastating, all of that. And if I tell those folks who've been betrayed, who are betraying, I go, you know what? If you want to go and you want to act out, go act out. Okay, go do whatever your heart desires. But you know what? Don't drag other people through the mud with you. Have the guts, have the courage, have the determination to stand up and say, you know what? I just can't keep doing it this way. I'm struggling, and I'm not taking you with me any longer. And that's what I actually did with my first two marriages because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had no idea. And I walked away from both of those after I was caught to say, I can't do this because if I know if I stay, I'm going to hurt you again. And I'm not going to do that anymore. Please don't take it as, oh, look how noble he was. Look how righteous he was. No, that's not the case at all. Okay. It was about how broken I was. And all I know was I didn't want to inflict more pain onto them. So again, if you're in the midst of struggling and you just can't seem to get it right and you have tried everything or you just want to quit, well, that's your prerogative. You can do that, but stop bringing other people into the mess with you. It's not right. It's not fair. It is totally unchristlike. Go deal with your brokenness on your own. That's what I did. I went off and I dealt with my brokenness. But what I did, I went off and dealt with my brokenness the second time. And I went and I sought the help I needed to find out what was wrong. And I got that help, which was then able to, help me get into a relationship that was great. Horrible for those two women before. And again, there's still grief that comes from all of that in me. The shame that's all part of that. But you know what? I was just not going to take them there again. So that another reason why, these relationships don't work out is because sometimes the betrayer does not allow for the partner to heal. And the biggest case that we see here is the hurry up, hurry up, come on, I need you, we need to move on, we need to move on. And it's like, first and foremost, you're not the one who makes that decision of when we move on. Okay. Second of all, it takes time, different amount of time for different people, depending on the level of betrayal, depending on where their past betrayals. Okay. There's many circumstances. There's no black and white here. There's a lot of gray. It's all gray. And the betrayer has to be understanding. If I always tell them, when you see hostility coming your way, what you need to do is stop, slow down, and see pain. See nothing but pain. Yeah, it may hurt. Client was telling me this week about his wife. They got into a major fight, and she did something which I'm not going to say because I don't want to jeopardize confidentiality. But man, it was cutting. It was cutting. When he told me what she did, it was like, ooh, I started to cringe with it. And it's like, okay, pain. I see the pain. Now, again, if it comes to abuse, that's something different. We never hit. We've talked about that. There's no hitting at all. There's nothing like that. But in here, it was a symbiotic. No, symbol. It was something that was really symbolic. Oh, there you go. The word, I found it. And it crushed him, but yet still able to kind of stay there and be able to deal with it and process it and to move on. We can't rush them. You have to be patient if you've betrayed. And you have to understand that, hey, you know what? It's going to be in their time, it's going to be in God's time. And, I know you're like, I feel lonely at times. I would love to be sexual. I would love to feel that, I've been forgiven. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Just like they would love to feel a sense of peace, to feel a sense of security, to feel that, you know what, nobody will ever hurt me again. And that's where they have to get to. They have to get to that point where they feel safe and secure. And that'll only happen when those who betrayed them change their way of life and living, the transformation of the heart. So now let me shift over a little bit to those who've been betrayed and why sometimes we see that things don't work out. And one of those reasons is the fact that they are not doing their work. And I know I've heard it many times. Like, why should I even have to do work? I did nothing wrong. I don't even deserve to be here. Why am I even sitting across from you? This is not fair. I don't want to be here. Yeah, I got it. I know. It wasn't what you signed up for. You got thrown something, somebody vomited all over you. But because they vomited all over you doesn't mean you walk around with that vomit still clinging to you. And what you have to do is you have to start to cleanse yourself. And part of that cleansing is the dealing with the trauma and the betrayal. It is being able to sit there and to process your pain and hurt with somebody who knows how to handle that, who knows how not to make it worse, because we've seen that happen too. To be able to help you, understand, I feel this, but what's reality? Because a lot of times things don't seem real. Because again, what all the gaslighting that happened, you feel like sometimes I am out of my mind, but you're not. You need to be able to do the work. Uh, some of those folks who've been betrayed, they become very secluded. They just kind of lock themselves away because again, they're saying, you know what, this is his problem. I don't want to deal with it, but they won't reach out to anyone else. No family members know, no friends know. So that's great. So now here come the holidays or the event, the family event, and you got to put on that smiling face and you got to pretend like nothing's going on. That's difficult. Now, I'm not saying you get up on the rooftop and, announce it to the world or post it on Facebook. That's not what I'm saying at all. But trying to keep the secret and yet pretend like nothing's wrong takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of work. I don't have to tell you, you know that. Those who betrayed may not know that, may not understand what's involved in that. And that's why you need somebody to talk through it. Nobody's going to help you come up with the plan of how do I handle that event. If you decide you don't want to tell family, fine. But how do you handle it so that it doesn't completely drain you and getting your breaks and things like that? This is the case where, it's almost, every relationship will end. And that is when the betrayed is not seeking redemption, they're seeking punishment. They're seeking to punish. Um, it's just that continuous reminder, day after day after day, that you don't deserve happiness. You don't deserve to have fun. You deserve nothing for what you put me through. If you think about that mentality for a moment, though, that keeps the person who's been betrayed in a very dark place. Because if you're going to continue to punish, you have to continue to harbor resentment, bitterness, anger, frustration, maybe even hatred. Where's the abundant life in that? Where's the growth that comes after that? There is none. And I understand that learning to forgive is a difficult process. That it's not one and done. You may have to forgive every day. And even as I said before, even though you forgive, that doesn't mean the relationship may be exactly what it has been in the past. However, if the person who's betrayed had done the work and they're in a better place, if you don't forgive, if you don't come off the sideline and get into the huddle and see for yourself the changes that have been made, you could miss out on something that's amazing in life. And again, I don't take this lightly. I'm not saying that it's easy. I know it's very difficult because many of you have been hurt, not just once, but twice, maybe numerous times. It is. And that part of it, sometimes I would go back to the idea of how much water is under the bridge. And maybe there's too much water under the bridge. And it's like, you know what, even though he changed or she had changed, I just don't have it in me to do it anymore. The other thing that we see again with the betrayed that make keeping the relationship going is very different is that they build a box and they try to keep the betrayer in the box. They're so hyper vigilant about where they're going, what they're doing, limiting their access to everything that, it's all, again, they're just so tuned into how do I control your life so that I can feel a sense of safety. Two problems with that. One is pseudo safety. It's not real safety. Okay. Just because he's got a flip phone, just because he has no internet ability, just because maybe you watch what he's doing what he watches on television, just because all of that stuff, that is not a sense of security. Because we don't get to see what happens if we let off the reins. How did he or she do? But you keep people in a box, and I've seen people get in the box. They've gotten in the box. They're like, fine, I'll just stay here. And again, I'm not saying that we don't have any of those kind of restrictions, especially at the beginning. We need them in many times. But people get in that box, they're busted out. At some point, they're going to bust out. And it may be 6 months, it may be 6 years, whatever it is, but they're not staying there. And besides, the energy it takes to keep someone in the box is just exhausting. See, what we got to really be looking for here is what are you holding on to? Is there a vine that is left that we can grab onto, both of us, and allow it to grow and take us into another garden where we can then replant everything? Because see, if that vine is not there, if there's nothing to cling to, and Terry was telling me the other day, she had a session and she asked the woman who had been betrayed, said, well, give me, some good attributes. She couldn't name anything. Couldn't name anything. And then it makes you wonder, so what are we doing here? You can't find anything good. Can't even find out, can't even say, well, he takes a shower every day. He picks up his laundry. Nothing. There's no vine. There's nothing there. What my guess is, there's nothing there for a long time. For a long, long time, there's been nothing there. Because many times we get into these relationships, we get into these things, and we think that we're emotionally engaged. We think that we're involved. We think that we're so madly in love. But one of us doesn't know what that really feels like or what it really is. And so now we're trying to put something together that was never really fully put together in the first place. And that makes it very difficult. Not impossible, but even more work is demanded. And with that work, becomes the idea of commitment, dedication. And what we find is in many cases, people get tired and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to do it. I'm glad to say that at least in our practice, what we've seen is that that's been a small number. But again, any of that, it still hurts. It hurts to see it happen. But again, like I said, this was not the most pleasant topic to talk about today, but I think it's one that needs to, be said, because I think you have to be real and you have to be honest with yourself. And is there the vine? And if it is, why am I not grabbing onto it? And again, I know the answer is fear. But again, if we're going to just continue to live in fear, we're not going to the other side. And if you're not going to go to the other side, then you're just going to live hell on earth. And it may not be full of conflict, but it's going to be very dry. It's going to be very dull. It's going to lack a great deal. And that's not the life that God asked us to have. So Scott, that's what I got for you today.
Thank you. That is a great topic, and I'm so glad you covered it. Because it's true, not every relationship makes it to the other side. If people are willing to, if there's something worth saving, and there almost always is, if we get married, we tend to get married for a reason. There's something about the other person that we really like. But so there's usually something worth saving, but not always. And sometimes, I always tell the guys that I'm working with, you want to end it, just keep lying, continue keeping secrets, because that'll do it. Relationships need mutual trust and vulnerability, and if you can't provide that, what's left? And that will almost always end the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like the point you made about with betrayed partners. Betrayed partners do tend to need to do some work, but they always. I often get the resistance, like, I didn't cheat. Why do I have to go to therapy? And my response is, you don't have to, but you get to. You deserve to. You deserve to get support and healing. If I'm driving down the road and a truck smashes into me and breaks my leg, well, I didn't cause this problem. Why do I have to go to the hospital? Okay, well, I don't have to go to the hospital, but I kind of deserve to. And
you'll be living in a lot of pain for a lot longer than
I'll feel a lot better if I go to the hospital.
That's a good point. I like that. That's a really good way to look at it. Good word picture.
So I have the opportunity to, I also I have a painting in my living room. It's about 4 feet by 8 feet, and you can't really see it from here. I'd show it to you, but it's got monkeys and birds, and it was done in Hawaii, and it hung in this huge open air hotel lobby in Hawaii, and they got hit by a typhoon. And this painting got ripped from the wall and kind of torn up, and there's a lot of water damage, which means it has the little crackles on it. And there was a big tear in the middle, and somebody took it and cut it down a little bit, where the edges were ripped and torn, and put it back in its original frame, but a little smaller. And it's got the crackles and the water damage, and they repaired like the big tear down the middle. And you can see all of this. You can see all of this damage.
Right.
I bought this painting in a gallery because of the damage. I think it's far more beautiful than it probably ever was because of all this damage and this history, and it's honest to me. It was vulnerable. It got hurt, and now it's honest. And I love this painting. And it's sort of my metaphor for what a marriage can be. I think this painting is better than it was before the damage. And I think relationships can also be better.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. They can be.
Because as addicts, we're never vulnerable. I mean, we go into relationships not being fully vulnerable and keeping secrets. And in recovery, we can learn to become more vulnerable and honest. And that makes for a better relationship.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. we don't know how to do relationships in many cases.
Right.
And that's why we wind up in the situations we wind up in. And that's why now all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's put this relationship back together. And it's like, well, wait a second, I still don't know how to do a relationship. How am I going to put it back together? So that's why we have to give the tools to be able to do that. And that takes time. That's why I said it usually takes about 2 years for it to click. If everybody's doing the work they're supposed to do, we can get there. But it takes a lot of patience with that, a lot of understanding. I can't tell you how many women or men who've been betrayed have sat on my couch and said, I don't want to be here. I don't like this. I don't like sitting here. Nothing against you, but I just don't want to be here. And I'm like, I know, I understand. And in a perfect world, I wish I didn't have to be here either. Because I wish, there was none of these problems. I wish everything was wonderful. It's not yet. This is not the time. There's another world coming. That's when we'll get there. I won't need to have that job up there. They're gonna have to make me push a broom and clean the street or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But
Okay, let's get to our questions. You're right. We have some questions. So I'm going to
okay.
pull from the chat feature first, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Can a
Okay.
partner have felt she had intimacy for several years, only to find out her husband had betrayed her during that time? So is it possible to feel intimacy even while you're being betrayed?
So can a partner have felt she had intimacy for several years? Yeah, you could feel it. Okay, you could feel it because let me tell you, people who have these addictions were really good at, making it feel like you are the only person in the world at that moment. You're the only thing. We put everything in like little compartments. So we're with you and we're sitting there, we're just making it so that, it's just you alone. So yes, you could have felt that intimacy that was coming. And it doesn't even mean that he wasn't trying to be intimate. But again, it's not true intimacy because after leaving here, he could turn his, direction either way. And that's why it's not solely focused on you. But yes, I feel like you could.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for talking about this topic. Not much out there about this in limbo phase. I find there are so many things out there about either help once you've decided to leave or help once you've decided to stay. Not much about me being in the middle. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. There isn't that much about in the middle. And there are, a lot of people who are in the middle. But the key, I mean, if you're going to look at the antidote to that, it is about two things. Well, maybe three. It is one, do the work. Do the work. Both of you do the work. Two, to be patient. You have to be patient, understanding nobody's gonna be perfect in doing it. Okay, so they're gonna backslide at times, but you need to be again moving to this idea that I'm going to be more outwardly focused. I'm going to be more curious. I'm going to learn how to um, connect. I'm going to learn how to identify my emotions and express them. But you're not going to be perfect in all of that and what goes on. Understanding that, and then third, it is putting your trust in God and bringing God into the middle of everything what we do with our relationship and being able to lean on him during those difficult times because there will be difficult times. But that's what needs to be done. And again, looking at it and saying this is a long haul and we signed up for it and keep checking your bandwidth. That's what I ask people during the week. How's your bandwidth? Can you hold out? Are you doing well? If not, how do we build that up?
And whether you're staying or going, you still need to do the work. I mean, if I've cheated in my last 7 relationships, including this one, and we're getting divorced, so I think, okay, well, I'll just move on. Guess what's going to happen in my next relationship? I'm going to cheat again because I haven't addressed my problems. So do the work either way. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. A
Okay.
big part of my trauma is my husband always telling me it will be better, or it will be different. Just do more therapy, when he was still lying and hiding this for 19 years in therapy after marriage, from the start of the marriage. 4 years into recovery, I can't afford falling for this lie anymore. I'm deeply traumatized. He resists basic things that would help me feel safe. I have to take care of me. Oppositional defiant husband. Not really a question there, but thoughts on that, Eddie?
Yeah. I mean, look at what's going on here. Okay, this is that perfect example of, goes back to those who betray, who don't stop betraying. And, for him to say, oh, we just need more counseling. This isn't a we thing. This isn't a we thing. This is a me thing. I'm not getting it right for whatever reason. And for him, it has to be, I'm going to dedicate myself to working on me and understanding why. Why does sex have a stronghold on my life? Why do I think, feel, and act the way I do? I mean, basically, okay, you're at a point, 19 years of this. So my question to you is, where are your boundaries? Where's your boundaries? Because again, if I can keep doing it and they just keep coming back to you and say, hey, you just need more therapy, we need more therapy, whatever. And then boom, I'm off and running again. You know, there's no skin in the game for him with that. So that's where I would, for you, I'd be looking at, okay, what are the boundaries? And remember the thing about boundaries, they have to have consequences. And remember the thing about consequences, they're going to hurt. They're going to hurt. They're not just going to hurt the person who the consequences for, they're going to hurt you too, because you have to enforce those. But that's the only way to get out of this cycle. You are in a nasty cycle here. And we need to be able to break that. And the only way you break it is you stand up and say, this is what I need from you. And I will take, and I expect nothing less, nothing less than this.
Okay, I'm going to switch this over to the Q&A feature.
Okay.
I love this first question. I'm a female sex addict, and my partner wants to see the work I'm doing in my recovery. Which I'm going to ask you a question about that, Eddie, if you don't address it already.
Okay. Yeah.
I attend meeting daily. I'm seeing two therapists making changes in my daily life, but I'm having trouble sharing with him what I'm working on. How can I show him that I'm serious about my recovery and demonstrate the changes I'm making?
Okay. Well, I don't have enough information here because I don't understand why you have trouble sharing. Okay, so that I need that. So, but I'll talk to you about what my thoughts are of sharing. I believe that if the person who's been betrayed has the energy and the interest to learn about and know and understand what the betrayed is learning, I'm all for it. Because again, I think one, it helps to develop some empathy and understanding with all of it, but not every partner wants to know what's going on in therapy with recovery. They just don't want to know that. So again, right now, not understanding why you're having trouble sharing, that kind of leaves me a little bit in the dark. I don't know. What do you think, Scott?
Well, usually, because I run into this situation where it's usually the male who's doing work in like one of my work groups or something, and we're kind of doing a first step, and we're looking at powerlessness and consequences and a lot of things that the betrayed partner doesn't know about. And what I'd say is, I don't think you should be sharing this right now. Save this for disclosure. Let your betrayed partner know. I will tell you everything, but let's do it in a therapeutic setting because we don't want death by paper cut. So I kind of,
yeah, right.
guys, keep your therapy work as therapy work.
Yeah.
You know, the MFT or the CSAT who's handling your disclosure and your couples work, you know, there's a place for that. But, you know, I usually say, you know, tell your wife your workbook, the Sex Addiction 101 workbook we use, tell her it's off limits. It's like your journal. But you will tell her everything at the proper time with therapeutic support.
Right, with the disclosure. You're talking about after disclosure, right? then they could share more about what they're learning.
Yeah, after
Yeah, I
disclosure, you
agree.
should definitely be more open after
Yeah,
disclosure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking disclosure happened,
Oh, okay.
and that now we're now in that. You're right. You can't be doing anything before disclosure happens. That has to be because again, what you do is you're processing through everything. And so therefore it may be you don't have all the answers at
Right.
that moment. And it may be, ooh, we landed on something, but then after we think about it for a while, it's like, no, that's not really what was at the core. So we don't want to be throwing all these things at the person who's been betrayed. So you're absolutely right that it has to be after disclosure, then you can again be able to share, let them take that walk with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and early on in the process, I mean, betrayers, the cheaters, and this is me. I'm a sex addict. I was so adept at lying, and it was so habitual. I would lie about things that didn't matter. It took me
Right.
a long time to just catch my lies as they were coming out of my mouth. I wasn't ready to answer all of somebody's questions because I couldn't tell them the truth. And
Mm.
continuing to lie, is the
It
way to
makes
end
it
your
worse.
relationship.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you got the hide and lie syndrome I was talking about that I
yeah,
shared about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Check out Eddie's blog about deceit. It's so good. Currently, my husband and I are not living together. My husband has lied, manipulated, narcissistic behaviors, gaslighted, emotional cheating for sure, and potential physical cheating, but we don't know yet. Well, he knows, you don't. I have learned this year with my CSAT that all the gaslighting is a form of emotional trauma, and I suffer from complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
very, very common. Most betrayed partners have at least symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Hmm.
I don't know if I should stay with him. One second, I will feel very strongly and at peace with divorce. The next second, I can feel equally strongly and at peace with working together and staying with him. Also common. I'm having a hard time with my therapist. I don't feel supported by her. I don't feel like she's understanding as to why I'm feeling this. And I'm left more discouraged and confused after sessions. She keeps pushing disclosure and polygraph, but I explained to her that I am not there yet. My issue is with the gaslighting and manipulation over finding out if he cheated. Is there any advice you can give to me to help me know if I'm getting the correct support from my therapist?
Yeah, I mean, your therapist has to go at your speed. Okay. If you and what I would probably be exploring with you somewhat is rationale or reason why what what is going to get you there, what's going to get you to the point that you feel okay, I'm ready for that disclosure and the polygraph. But right now, like you said, your head is in a fog based on all the gaslighting and manipulation. And I think you have to process through all of that and sort that through so that you can get yourself at a place where you feel more confident about who you are. And again, moving away from what you feel to and examining it to what is real and being able to go there. And I think that's probably where you're going to get to the point where you have that confidence that, okay, I can accept what gets thrown at me, whatever it is in that disclosure, that I can now sit with that. So I think what you want to be telling your therapist is, hey, help me with, and you might have done this already, the gaslighting and the manipulation and how foolish I feel by a lot of it, how it left me doubting myself, doubting reality in general. Help me deal with those things. And that most likely will get you to the point where you're feeling that, we can move to disclosure and later on a polygraph. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, it sounds like the therapist is really pushing your window of tolerance here and out of your comfort zone, which is not so great. But I also understand why this therapist might be sort of pushing because most betrayed partners, not all, but most betrayed partners want to know everything and they want to know it yesterday. So this therapist is probably used to betrayed partners pushing for disclosure right now, and it may feel a little against the grain to say no. I need to back up and do some work on myself before I am able to hear it and trust it.
Right. Because again, we go back to the suffering from complex PTSD. Okay. That again, post-traumatic stress disorder is tough enough. When it's complex, you're in that circle of it, just back and forth. And therefore you need to be able to sort through it. And that takes time. It takes time to be able to get to a place where you can feel more comfortable. Um, because right now you're not comfortable. And if you're not comfortable sitting in a disclosure and hearing all that stuff being thrown at you, I shouldn't say comfortable, it's actually strong enough. The self has to be strong enough to be able to manage that as it comes at you. So that's where I would go. And if your therapist doesn't want to do that, then I'm looking for a therapist who specializes in trauma and starting to do more there. Because let me tell you, just because you're a CSAT doesn't mean that you're great with trauma. They're all different. Yeah, we got trained in trauma, but doesn't mean that you're, excellent with that. So sometimes you need to go find somebody who just specializes in that. So.
I love this next question. Is there a point at which the addict can't fake recovery? Are there any indicators of really solid recovery to look for? My sex addicted husband is doing the work on his early childhood trauma, is gaining and being able to be empathetic, and appears to be working on being open and transparent. But it's hard to know if it's all reliable. Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. And again, if you saw my podcast that dealt with the blind spots or read the article, that Scott did a great job putting all that together. We had like a 4-part series on the blind spot. You're going to find the answers of what you're looking for. For me, the way you get to a point where you're thinking, where you can see and say, I know I don't think they're faking recovery. It's just, it's not just, they're not engaging in that behavior anymore. What it is, I've seen wholesale changes and transformation in their heart. I see somebody who now is, as you said, empathetic. Maybe he didn't have empathy for it, but now he has empathy. That he is open, he's transparent, that he is, again, outwardly focused, focusing more on your needs, wants, and desires than his own. It's those kind of things. Go back and read that article about the blind spots. In fact, God, I got to update it. I had 12 and now I got 14. So I'm going to have to do that at some point. But, but yet you're right. It's hard to know because there's going to be something in your gut that's always going to tell you like, is it real? When it's real when you see different changes. I see the new guy. In your case, I see the new guy, or I see the new woman. I see a totally different approach. And if I see that, then perhaps maybe I can put my trust there. There has to be more than just, I'm not doing that anymore. That's not enough. It's not enough to give you the confidence you need to be able to say he's in a good place. But it sounds like what's going on here, especially I love the fact that you're doing that childhood trauma work, that inner child stuff. I love that. You're right down my alley. But it sounds like he's moving in the right direction, Laura. Can't hear you, Scott. You're muted.
I was muted.
There you
I
go.
put the link to that series in the chat feature, and Zoom made this weird thing where you can't copy those links. So, but I think you can click them and open it like now and then copy it. So anyway, or you can just go to sexandrelationshiphealing.com, put in Eddie Capparucci in the search feature, and it'll bring it up. And I also wanted to add to this question. This sounds like a really normal process for a betrayed partner to be going through, where she's trying to trust and find safety in the relationship, but just isn't quite there yet. And it just takes a little more time if he really is doing all the work. And it sounds like from what you're describing, yeah, he's doing good work. So slowly, the trust will come back and the safety will come back, but it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, that's like the normal process. It just takes time, right, Eddie?
Okay.
Assuming he's doing everything right.
Right. Okay. Ferris's question breaking my heart. Go ahead.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, Ferris.
Okay. Is it possible for relationship healing if my sex addict, porn addict husband therapist does not follow a partner model? Therapist's words when I inquired. He does not help my husband understand when I pull away when not feeling safe from his continued wounding from verbal and emotional abuse or lack of active recovery. He tells him to prepare for divorce because I'm giving up. It's been over a year, and aside from sobriety, there's been no progression.
Yeah. Yeah, this is hard. This is difficult. Because yes, the therapist should be setting expectations of what you're going to see from the betrayed partner who's dealing with trauma. So again, it sounds like what you're saying here that that's not been happening. However, what you're also saying has been over a year, and aside from sobriety, there's been no progression. And I assume that you're talking about what I was just saying before. You're not seeing those other changes in your husband. And that's what you need to be able to see. Um, if he's continuing to wound from a verbal and emotional abuse, um, that is not, again, that's not helping you to feel safe. And without feeling safe, there is no recovery here. So, yeah, you really do need a therapist that understands what's going on the other side with the partner who's been betrayed. Um, I don't know if you've had couple sessions with them together or not, but it sounds like your husband needs a lot more insight on how to be able to help you and assist you when you're going through the periods of grieving.
Yeah, in early recovery, addicts are often relieved when all the information comes out. We've known about it forever. We've been feeling guilty and shameful. We're relieved to get it out. You didn't know about it. You just got run over by a truck, you know, and an emotional Mack truck just flattened you. You are not relieved to find out about all this. You are betrayed. And I mean, nothing hurts worse than betrayal from the person that you trust the most. You never expect your husband to betray you. He's the one person who's supposed to always have your back, and now he just stuck a knife in it. And yeah, and I don't like the therapist that's telling him to prepare for divorce.
Yeah, but the one thing I'll say, Ferris, is are you doing your work? You know, I don't know what's going on there with you.
There's
I hope
follow up
that
here.
you're
Let me
doing.
read this to you, Eddie.
Oh, more. Okay.
This is 3 years post discovery. No full disclosure yet, but working on it. Yet my husband complains that I'm still not fully in, though I try to explain I can't be without knowing everything. Additionally, he's not doing the recovery work necessary to rebuild trust. Thinks weekly therapy and sporadic podcasts are enough. I'm doing my work.
Okay, you are doing
And you're
your
here
work.
too, which shows you're at least putting in some effort. So.
Yeah, that's good. But why are we 3 years post discovery and we still haven't had a disclosure yet?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Too long.
That is way too long. And I think, again, working on it. I mean, I'm pushing pretty hard to get that thing done because until that happens, you're right. How do you go back? How do you go fully in to a situation you don't know what's there? You don't know everything. And it may be you look at that and say, oh my God, this is such a cesspool. I can't even think about going back in there. So your husband has to understand that the sooner he does that disclosure, the sooner it gives you the opportunity to make that decision of will I be fully in or I can't. But right now you're hovering above the ground and you have nothing that security, that grounded area that you can land on that you feel safe. So yeah, you got to get that disclosure done.
Yeah, how can you make an informed decision when you don't have all the information? And how can you be expected to make an informed decision when he won't give you all the information. What's the normal time frame for disclosure, Eddie? 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, I'd say, well, it could be anywhere depending on what the extent of, the transgressions are. Could be 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
I try not to drag it out too long, but the thing is, we need to have the time so that we can try to, because I want part of my disclosure that I want is why. Why has this occurred? Because I think that's really important. So sometimes that takes a little bit longer than other times.
Okay. A little bit of time left. I'm not sure what to talk about. I discuss what I learned from others. I'm feeling better about myself as a person instead of a sex object. Working on realizing all the ways it has impacted my life. I think this must
Yeah, this goes back to our first question that we had.
Oh yeah.
The female sex addict. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're starting to feel much better about yourself and who you are. You're a person. You're the princess of a king, and you need to treat yourself that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then in the chat feature, one little last thing here. Can you do more webinars or articles on any other types of resources about the should I stay or should I go? I will add that Rob Weiss's book, Out of the Doghouse, and then the Christian version of that, which he did with Marnie Faree, has a chapter about should I stay or should I go? And it asks some questions about, it looks for the vines, basically, that Eddie talked about earlier. And it also looks for the honesty and the trust issues.
Yeah. There are, like I said, I didn't say there wasn't nothing done. There's stuff out there. It's just not a topic that's very common.
Yeah, not a lot. And almost everybody who's been through betrayal finds themselves, both the betrayer and the betrayed, find themselves thinking, should I stay or should I go at some point?
Right.
I mean, that's a normal thought, isn't it?
Well, I think that brings us to the end of our show for today. Hey, folks, thank you once again. I appreciate your dedication and commitment to coming out here once a month and working with me. I will not be here next month. I'll be on vacation, but I'll be back again in June, and we'll do this again. If you have topics that you want for this show, you can send them in to Scott or Tammy, or a lot of you know where my website is. Just go Google me. You'll find my email and send me a note, and I'll be happy to think and consider about some of that stuff. So I hope God blesses all of you, and that you continue to work through your issue and what's going on, and just try to be gentle with one another.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for letting me fill in for Tammy today. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
And, thank you, Scott.
We'll see you soon.
Great. Bye.